It's a big planting day here today. We ordered a bunch of berry plants from Stark Brothers, and they ship based off your zone. And when they show up, they're ready to go in. They like ship it specifically for that. So in here we've got 3 raspberry plants soaking, 3 blueberry plants. This is about 30 strawberry plants I'm trying to keep moist before they go in the ground. And then 3 blackberry plants. So I think my husband is going to dig some holes, and then later today I'm going to go put them out there. We also have a dwarf nectarine tree that my son carried off somewhere. That's going to go into the ground too. Okay, located the dwarf nectarine tree my other son walked away with. So you can see right now it's probably about 3 feet high, and it's a dwarf, which means it won't grow to the full size of a tree, but it'll still produce full-size fruit. And we also, that was a reason why we picked it, is because we don't have a ton of space. We're on barely over a 1/4 acre. And then we also picked it because it's a self-pollinator. So it would do awesome if you had more trees with it. We just don't have that space. We needed a single tree that would produce fruit for our family. So that's why we picked this dwarf, because it's smaller, it produces full-size fruit, but you only need 1 to make fruit. And we also, our family just enjoys nectarines. And so this was a good one for us. We'd love to have apples, but you need more than 1 and those get big. And so it just wasn't a good idea for us right now. So we went with the dwarf nectarine.
So now you can see my husband Joel is digging us a hole for our nectarine tree. And so the main thing we gathered from other research along with the Stark Brothers website is that since we're planting this on a slope, we're going to need to make sure that the back side is higher up than the lower side, like as far as the dirt you put into the hole, because since we're on a slope, rain is going to be coming down and you don't want that to completely wash away from the tree. You want that to get some kind of moisture. And so having that extra dirt on the back creates kind of like a berm to make sure the water doesn't wash away and the tree gets enough moisture. And so now we're up on the upper side of the house and we're planting the raspberry bushes. And so choosing to have the raspberries here was a little bit arbitrary, but also we're planting blackberries and those need to be at least 70 feet apart. And so we didn't want to have those too close to each other. And the way we could do that was to have raspberries over here and then the blackberries on the farther side of the yard. And so right now, Joel's helping me dig these holes. You could see I got a little bit cold there. We're just fighting the cold, fighting the sunset. Kids are in bed. We're trying to get this done fast. So we got those 3 in and we measured them 2 feet apart, like from one end of the hole to the other end of the hole, 2 feet apart. And now we're just filling it in with bagged topsoil. And that is honestly just because the berry book I have said to fill it with topsoil, and the Stark Brothers website said to fill it with topsoil. So that's what we're doing. So that's just bagged topsoil from the hardware store. And we're just filling in these holes. And it just said to make sure that it was level with the ground. So that's what we are aiming for with this. And it doesn't show it, but I came back the next day and watered those just because it was too cold this night and getting too late that I just decided to do that the next day. So I'm just finishing up the last of the topsoil, plopping it in there, and then you'll kind of see me sneak off screen here in a little bit. And I just threw some onto that nectarine tree as well because I figured can't hurt and wanted to just extend that berm up a little bit more to really make sure that the tree was going to get enough moisture. And I also came back and watered that tree later too.
All right, so it is Monday, March 28th, and we are going to attempt to get these strawberries in the ground. As you can see on how I'm dressed, it's pretty cold out, but I ordered these strawberries from Stark Brothers, and it was supposed to be a 25 pack, but unless I counted wrong, it seems like there's 30 here. And so they arrived Friday evening, and they ship to you based off your zone. Like, they know your zone, they ship it to you based off when you should put them in the ground. So ideally I should have put them in the ground Friday, but we had like a busy weekend and we were away. away, and it just was not going to work. And so we tried to do a little bit last night, but with 2 kids and the sun setting, it just wasn't happening. And so right now the kids are asleep, so this is like my window to do it. And so praying these have not died. I've been trying to keep them moist. We'll see. Okay, so I'm going off the Backyard Berry book. And this is saying, let's look for strawberries. Because this is how I planned out this plot. It was based on what this book said for strawberries. Let's do them 12 inches apart, and then I think I can do 2 feet in rows. Let me revisit that. Let me get this soil down first. That's the first step. On here right now we have cardboard, leaves, compost, and manure. So then we're just going to top it with topsoil and then get going. And then I'm going to do some spacing. I brought out these gardening gloves, but I just despise gardening gloves. Like, I've never found any that fit my hand. Like, these are like marketed towards women. And that's just like absolutely insane. That's going to make my life harder. So we're not going to do that.
So you heard me say in that previous clip that it was March 28th when I recorded this, and as of right now, me editing it, it's April 2nd, and the strawberries got snowed on this morning, but I went out there, and possibly even another time, I can't remember, but I went out there this morning, April 2nd, and they were alive and green, so that's great news, and I'm very excited about that. And I have more hope than I did previously that these strawberries would survive. I think I was kind of resigning myself to the fact that I'd be going to a garden center and buying strawberry plants and just using those. And so I'm pleasantly surprised. And what I was not pleasantly surprised about was this topsoil. As I was spreading it out, it was really lumpy. You can see me kicking it a bunch to try to break it up, and there's these pieces that you could see me grab one there that they're just like straight up clay, like red clay, like that I remember like in elementary school art class, like working with clay, like that's what it was like, and these huge chunks of it. And so I was kind of annoyed that topsoil is like that, and you can still see there's all these like huge clumps that I have to kick up and all this clay I'm finding. And so I was worried that was going to make it harder to plant these. And it turned out okay. I kind of had to like plant and work around these clumps and pick up some big ones and get rid of them. Um, and you can see here I'm spacing them out. So I did have 30, even though the pack I ordered said 25. And so I am just spacing it out. I believe I did 6 rows of 5. So 6 by 5 is 30. And that was the strategy I went. And I kind of just eyeballed spacing them out a couple feet apart, and I think it'll turn out okay. Honestly, one of my biggest issues is my dog keeps walking on the garden, and so I hope they just stay alive and can survive the dog walking on it. Um, then as far as the actually planting them, I just made sure the roots, because the root system is actually kind of long. That surprised me, and so I just made sure those were deep enough, and some of them I kind of had to like curl around to fit in the hole because it's just not a deep bed, and that's just kind of one of the issues we had with choosing to not do a raised bed, and we chose that because of the current lumber prices. And so I'm hoping that they have enough space for the roots to spread out and for the roots to be happy. And it took me longer than I thought to do this. Like this whole time not sped up was probably about 45 minutes of my time to plant all of these. But I think it'll be totally worth it. You can see here I'm just picking up a giant clump of clay again and throwing it. And yeah, so I'm hoping this really works out. And kind of the things I read about strawberries is that you for number one, the first year you force yourself to not get any fruit from it. And then in the following years, they give you fruit and they set off these shoots, and then those shoots make new plants, and the old plants after a few years die, and it kind of gives you just like years and years of fruit. And I'm really excited about that, but it takes patience, I guess.
Okay, so these paper towels holding the strawberries for a couple days so these can go straight into the compost. And then I'm going to clean this up and water because we picked up the compost. It was super moist. We got it from the solid waste center. It was super moist. That has dried out. Even as I'm laying down this topsoil, it's drying out. So I need to like water this super well. Okay, I'm gonna put on my gloves because I think my hands are gonna get cold from this water. Okay, it's gonna squish. Can you get up? Oh. So today is March 28th, and my goal was to get the potatoes in before the month was over. And because they said you can plant them about 6 weeks before the last frost, so I'm gonna try to get them in before this month is over. Hopefully before this week is over, because then the month is over. So I'm gonna get this topsoil down and then water it so it's just in better shape for when I put the potatoes in. And then also my broccoli is starting to sprout a little bit, and that's supposed to go in next month. And so we got to get it ready for the broccoli too. So I'm just going to dump all this topsoil.
So now this is later in the day on the 28th, and this is kind of how things go around here, is we are just trying to find pockets of time to get things done, and we try to involve the kids when we can, but sometimes it's not reasonable. Like at this time, it was like we're getting really close to dinner time and the kids are kind of freaking out, which is why you could see me take our son in. And Joel is just planting the blackberries for me, and he's doing them 4 feet apart and 2 feet from that fence. That's what he aimed for. And both the Stark Brothers website and my backyard berry book recommended this spacing, and so that's what we went with. And then also, this is the spot that allows us to be farthest from the raspberries, which is like on this because we're in the backyard now. The raspberries are on like the front side of the house, so that gives us that at least 70 feet away, and that prevents the spread of disease between those two plants. He's just finishing up by filling in these holes with some topsoil, and that's it.
We're trying to plant blueberries, lining them up with the blackberries we did over this side. So I'm just trying to see. We're even about halfway between this. I'm gonna line up with sod. So we're like a bit over this line of sod. Let's aim for right here. So we're gonna do 2 feet from the fence and 4 feet apart from each other. So 2 feet from the fence is right here. So we're gonna get that dug. My phone blowing batteries. Trying to go fast. I got a couple helpers with me. Oh, we have to go to bed and before the sun sets.
As I finish up these blueberries, I would just want to thank you so much for watching, and it's just been a lot of fun to kind of document this new endeavor I'm on and filling our backyard with just great edible stuff for our family. And not long after this shot, I go to get the acidifier for these blueberries, but the camera dies as I'm walking back. And so I just wanted to point out that I added about a cup and a quarter of acidifier to these plants and then came back later that night and watered it all.